Hey, hi everybody. Today I went and dug out Love and Rockets #1. This is the first printing. This is a treat for me because this is definitely the first time I've even opened this up. I haven't opened it up. I just took it out of the bag and I haven't looked inside this since I bought this one years and years ago. Okay, this is #1. For those who don't know, Love and Rockets is the Hernandez brothers. There's Gilbert, there's Jamie, and the lesser known Mario, even though Mario was the older brother, and I think it was his idea, and he came up with the title. Now, the band Love and Rockets allegedly stole the name from this comic. This was before this, and this lineup is just a classic cover. Okay, sorry, I got distracted by something. So here we go. These are South California creators. Okay. BEM, Bug-Eyed Monster. That's what BEM stands for. That's okay. All right. These are the chapters. The staff: Gilbert, Jamie, creative co-conspirator Mario. Yep. Okay. This Berto is Gilberto, and this first issue is very science fiction and monster and fantasy. And if you read the newer issues, it's very grounded in reality. But I like to think it's magical realism, like 100 Years of Solitude or Love in the Time of Cholera. Because although it will be the newer comics, although it will be grounded in reality, this is always fantastic. But this is them at the beginning. I first found out about the Hernandez brothers through a comic called Mr. X by Vortex Comics. And Mr. X was this mysterious traveler and worked to see. I love Mr. X, and supposedly it soured them. They never got paid for their work, and they left abruptly. And then that comic never recovered, and slowly just dwindled away into obscurity. And they founded their own comic, Love and Rockets, and it was supposed to be like a mix of soap opera and fantasy. See, I'm not reading it because I honestly don't remember the story. I have a compendium that compiles this, something like 154 characters, and this is the first appearance of Luba, as far as I know, and that's one of the main characters in their story. You see Luba, she grows old, she has children and grandchildren, and it's kind of set in real time. So, oh geez, what year is this? I didn't even look. 1982. Okay, so Luba is an old gray-haired woman now in the modern comics. As I jump around, and I honestly don't know what's part of their backstory enough, because I have lent out collections I bought and given away collections of Love and Rockets to family members and to friends, and it never caught on. They just politely just said, "Oh, okay, whatever." And I keep saying the first 3 issues, you just gotta soldier on, and then it becomes one of the best comics you'll ever read. Because I don't think they knew what they wanted, or maybe they were just kids. A lot of dialogue. They had, the art gets so much better. The storytelling gets more and more concise and laser focused, and then they just do like little character stories, and they jump back and forth in time. Sometimes this is the first appearance of Maggie, and Race Hoppy. They never even reference these stories. Like, did they start over, just not tell anybody? But this is Maggie and her girlfriend. I think that's Hopi, and they are the main characters. Luba is the main. Gilbert has his own half of the book, and then Jamie has his half of the book. And everybody always says Gilbert's the better writer and Jamie's the better artist. I disagree. I think they're different, but they're both. It's apples and oranges. They're both wonderful. Gilbert, I devour the Gilbert stories. There's something about his characters in why can't I remember the name of the town? But they're all from the same, like, magically realistic town in Mexico, and then they immigrate to the States. Some of them will go back. They grow old. They die. They change, because it's literally 40 years, and then they call this the locus, and it's about these two girls, Maggie and Hopi, from Hoppers, California, which I think is based on the real Riverside, California. And it starts with them in this punk rock scene in the 80s, and they're punk rock girls, and then Maggie becomes a mechanic on spaceships and travels the solar system, you know. And she meets what's his name, Race Hoppy, Race, and she, you know, here he is. He's this mechanic on spaceships, and she becomes a pro solar mechanic, from what I remember. And then 5 years later, not even 5 years, so like 4 or 5 issues later, she's just like a normal girl. You know, they don't reference like these space travels to planets, and you know. And then you think it's totally normal, and you forget about all the space stuff, and then they introduce one of the characters as a superhero, Penny Century. You see her later. You know, so go figure. They're always throwing you for a loop. And it's kind of like the, you know, anal retentiveness of me. I keep trying to categorize it, log it, and draw lines, and, you know, almost like you see in like all those conspiracy theory movies, the lines on the wall. I try to draw lines to connect, and I just gave up and started just enjoying the stories. Like one of their friends later on, his father has horns, and every day he has to file the horns because he H.R. Costigan, he's the richest man in the world, and they supposedly he made a deal with the devil to become rich, and he's slowly looking more and more like Satan. And then she inherited the horns, and she's just, he dies, so she inherits all the money, and she's just this beautiful rich girl with horns, and she has to file down the horns every morning. And I think she started to grow a tail, you know. And this is Ben, this is Gilbert. They kind of dropped this storyline again, but Bug-Eyed Monsters. He dropped this, and then he took. Oh, that's gonna drive me nuts that I can't remember the name of the town, but that's what they're called, the Luba stories. And then I don't know what it is. They went for comic book size. This ran for 50 issues, and then they did I actually caught on with Love and Rockets with the issue with Penny Century #1. And I bought it. I had no clue what was going on, but I just loved it. And then I went and bought all the back issues. So I was 10 years late. So I bought the first 50 issues of Love and Rockets, and then I just devoured them. I read them instantly and realized that once I just gave up on trying to make a continuity out of it all, just enjoy it. It got better. See, now this is Hoppers 13. This is Jamie's main story. See, and it's more realistic, and it's 2 girls growing up, and it's just so human. Here's Penny Century, okay, and her name is Beatrice. Oh, there's H.R. Costigan. I forgot that he was even in the first issue. She's just this beautiful girl, and she marries him. She's like a gold digger, and he doesn't promise her money. He promises that he will find a way to turn her into a superhero, because she grew up reading comic books and just wants to be a superhero. Beatrice just wants to be a superhero. And somehow, I don't even know if they explain it, but all of a sudden you see her flying and shooting laser beams, and she joins a team with Cheetah Torpedo, and they fly through the galaxy. And then they forget about it for years. They're just doing these more human stories like Heartbreak Soup and stuff like that. Heartbreak Soup is this. Everybody in the town, when they get their heart broken, they eat this soup that one of them makes, and it's cured. It's just such a wonderful. That was the beginning of them becoming legendary, if you ask me. This is just kind of like silly, semi-Frazetta fantasy stuff. But once you get to Heartbreak Soup, which is its own collection, so if anybody's interested in Love and Rockets, I would recommend getting the Heartbreak Soup trade paperback or graphic novel. And Isabel Rubens, I forgot that she was in their very first comic, but this character is a very interesting character. Look how young she is, because in the latest issue I just read, she's old, almost like witchy, with like wrinkles and long hair, but it's 40 years later, so she's probably, like, the character itself is probably in her 80s. And at one point she ate something that disagreed with her, and she just started growing, and she was like 18 feet tall before Hope and Maggie cured her. she was in danger of growing so big to destroy her house. And another issue, she was the only one who could see a ghost. Just, and then other issues, it's just her hanging out with the girls, giving out like love advice. Okay, so you never know. I think this was her writing, so I think that's, she's just alone writing a story. This is not the best example to show you why I love Love and Rockets. You definitely like the Mobius inspiration, but this is their first issue, and I feel I just had to, I'll dig out another issue to show you like how much it's changed. I got the most recent issue right here to my right, and they're just legendary. You go to one of the comic conventions and they got a line, just super fans. Just I just always loved this. The beginning of this, you could just see the clean lines. Okay, now we're back to race and space. Definitely like heavy metal inspired. I can't even begin to tell you the story because I have no recollection of the story. This is like as much a surprise to me as it is to you. This character, why can't I remember his name? But he gets murdered, and it's a really sad story. So they use all these, like, a character from Bug-Eyed Monster later on. He becomes like this mopey character who's in love with one of the other characters, and she just rejects him, and he gets murdered, and then the other girl feels guilty for just such human stories. Here's Locust again. See Maggie and Hopi again. Now you could see within the first issue, like the whole spaceship angle is already starting to fade away, and it's them going to parties and getting drunk and seeing bands and traveling, and they start a band and they live in the van, and then they fight because Maggie ends up dating another guy, and Hopi gets mad, and Hopi stays with the girl, and Maggie leaves and goes on to a series of loser men. Here's the band. It's just they grow, they change, they have character arcs. Some of the characters you don't see for like 20 years. And then their big change was when the death of I think his name was Speedy, one of the characters gets murdered, like in a gang fight. And you don't see any fantasy stuff for like 20 years. It's just like very human. The only fantasy stuff, there'd be like a 5-page short insert story that you don't know where it fit with like new characters. And then one of the characters, Lupa's sister, Fritzy, she didn't debut yet, but Fritzy becomes an actress, and she is in all these B movies. And one of the issues, without explanation, will just be, it's the movie that she's in. Love and Rockets, is like spacey stuff. So it'll just be like a crazy fantasy, and then you catch on that it's we're watching a movie in the Love and Rockets universe that Fritzy started. Like one of the issues, they were just werewolves. But this is a rough read. If you buy the single issues and start with issue 1, you're going to be like, why did you recommend this? I guarantee you. Like I said, I've bought the first trade paperback that I think is the first 3, maybe 5 issues. And I've given it to at least 4 or 5 people. And not one of them have said, hey, that was great. They're all just like, hey, did you get yeah, I got it. And that was like it. So, buyer beware. But I love it. And had this been my first issue, I probably wouldn't have collected the series. But like I said, 50 issues have gone by, and then they canceled the comic, and they made comics based on secondary characters. Like I got Penny Century. Then there was another comic called Luba. And I bought the Penny Century, and I loved it so much. I bought the Luba. I started collecting those, and then I found out that, it was 10, 50 issues that I didn't read yet. I had to go get the back issues. And some of them were expensive, so I bought them out of order, but I put them in a stack, and I read them once I finally got all 50. And like I said, I only read this and kept on going because I already paid for the other 50 issues. So I probably wouldn't have continued if it was just this. But by the 3rd or 4th issue, geez, it's just phenomenal to the point where when I go to get comics every month, I'm always eagerly looking for if the newest Love and Rockets has come out. I've been collecting this, I think, whenever Penny Century came out, like 93, 94. So I've been getting Love and Rockets since the early 90s, probably 94. Well, this is a little showcase of Love and Rockets. Mario, although he was one of the founders in the first issue, he disappeared. And a couple of issues ago, he did a story. His artwork greatly improved, but it's mostly Jamie and Gilbert. And if you're interested in Love and Rockets, I recommend the Heartbreak Soup, which is a collection of Gilbert's stories. And if you're interested in Jamie's stories, Locus, L-O-C-A-C. Oh, geez, I can't even spell. L-O-C-A-S, Locus. Crazy girls, and that's his Hopper's stories. Hopper's is the fictional town that they come from. Okay. There you go. That's Love and Rockets #1. I love this comic. It's really bizarre, and I understand if it's not your cup of tea. Okay? Thanks a lot. Let me know what you think. Bye-bye.